Hey, I'm Colleen. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, a parent coach, and I specialize in family emotional regulation. Today, we're going to be talking about learning how to set emotional boundaries, particularly when there are challenging behaviors or emotional experiences with children. I talk about this in my book, How to Lovingly Set a Firm Boundary, and in my parenting course. But really, the ability to set emotional boundaries is so helpful for these challenging experiences when a child may have a tantrum or some moment of dysregulation. And when we focus on that dysregulation and lose our place of inner coherence, that only contributes to more escalation. So there's a lot of different strategies and ways that we could talk about navigating these situations. But today we're going to talk specifically about learning how to set an emotional boundary. How much of someone's dysregulation am I going to focus on and make my own? It becomes really stressful when we feel as adults that we have to have the answer for every challenge that a child experiences, when sometimes we really need is to be there as loving support, loving guidance, to help them and be the presence for them in those moments, but not needing to be the solution for everything. That creates a lot more pressure and stress for us in these moments. So let's talk specifically in a really heightened emotional experience, maybe a child's having a tantrum or a really difficult transition. This can be one of the moments when we learn to set emotional boundaries. When we figure out and focus on prioritizing our own regulation over the dysregulation of another. Because what happens sometimes in these moments is that a child or another person's dysregulation becomes the loudest thing in the room. That we focus on that. We kind of maybe unintentionally give our power away to that. What we want is to keep our power within, to prioritize our regulation, and then support the situation and the child from that place. There's a lot of strategies that I discuss in my parenting course in my book about intentionally responding rather than reacting. But this is really about also choosing in the moment what's going to get my attention. What am I going to focus on? Someone else's dysregulation that I ultimately have no control over, or my own inner coherence and what I need to feel safe and regulated. You ultimately can navigate the situation from that place. You can lead in those moments. What happens sometimes when a child has a really big emotional reaction and then we emotionally respond to that, it just amplifies that situation. When really the best thing we can do is to be the calm for their chaos. But sometimes we have to make difficult choices, especially if we have patterns of reacting to a child's dysregulation. They get dysregulated, then we get dysregulated. They're upset, and then we kind of freak out because we feel like we need to have the answer. When sometimes the best thing we can do is to set emotional boundaries. Well, first and foremost, we always need to ensure safety. I talk about that a lot in the course. Always ensure safety, and then everything else comes from that place. But that needs to be first. I also talk a lot about emotional safety too, which there's a lot of ways you can go about doing that too. Anyway, so let's assume safety set, the child's not throwing toys or something like that. They're having a big feeling moment. We get to choose. We can choose to take a step back, maybe metaphorically, focus on our breath, focus on what's happening. What are we feeling? What are we experiencing? What are our thoughts right now? And to care more about us feeling okay in these moments than needing to be the solution for someone else's dysregulation. Sometimes some children, as they're learning emotional regulation, they have to go through the learning process with feelings. They have to have the big feelings and learn how to work through it. When we're not okay with their big feelings, I just filmed a video on this. When we're not okay with their big feelings, that doesn't help either. We have to be okay with big feeling moments, be okay with our big feeling moments, and ultimately that's how we learn to work through it and transform them. We can't change what we're not aware of. And if we don't allow ourselves and others to have these big feeling moments, then we ultimately can't move through them. So let's say a big feeling moment happens. We can choose. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be present. But I'm not going to lose my marbles because a child is upset. I'm not just going to look like I have it all together. I'm going to really feel like I'm present in my body and giving myself love in this moment. I'm going to be okay with the fact that a dysregulated moment is happening because maybe you can even take it a step further. I understand the value of these moments. I'm going to let it happen. Again, we're ensuring safety. And then we're allowing this to come up. Challenging experiences come up. It's part of life. It's how we learn, it's how we move through it. We have to be okay with them. And when we're okay with these moments, the children feel that too. When we're not okay with how they feel that too. So it's all about being okay with it. We get to be that safe space for them as they have these big feelings. We can be okay with it. We can be okay with ourselves. We can be present in the moment. We can hold space. We can help them with self-regulation. I have a whole pediatric workbook on it that's great. That has a lot of in the moment tools and strategies, more so focused on children and what they need. This video is more about the adult perspective. But again, teaching them that these moments are okay by us demonstrating that we're okay in these moments. And then we can be that loving support that we really want. We can be that positive benefit that we want to be. We have to be able to set boundaries with our focus and not take on someone else's emotional experience. What we do instead is we prioritize our own, what we need, and then navigate the situation from that place. In doing so, we're able to show up in these moments the way we actually want to. We get to be loving and helpful, and we can guide, and we can show children how to navigate tumultuous moments. We have to be okay with them, and we also can't take on all of what they're experiencing because ultimately, someone else's emotional experience isn't our responsibility. Our emotional experience is our responsibility. So when we can set boundaries with how much of someone's dysregulation am I going to make my own, it can really help in these tricky moments because sometimes we feel so much pressure when we feel like we have to be the solution for every emotional challenge that a child has. Ultimately, we want to be that safe space, that loving presence, that safe container to be there for children as they learn to navigate their challenging emotional experiences. I can talk more about this. I probably will. I love this topic of emotional regulation. I have a parenting book coming out summer 26, a parenting course, parent coaching, and then I also have a pediatric occupational therapy practice. Follow for more.